All right. So we've got people already starting to come in. Thanks for joining, everyone. Super excited to kick off this webinar. Probably the one I'm most excited about because these are two of my absolute favorite people in the industry. And I'm not just saying that. I promise you. In fact, guys, we were just as a team yesterday. We had a half a dozen folks in town. We were going through who are our favorite folks in the industry. The Minnesota gang got a ton of love from our customer success and sales group. So can't thank you guys enough for taking the time. We're gonna spend today kind of as we normally do. We'll kick it off with some quick introductions. We've got a handful of questions and things that we're gonna show you and kind of walk through, and we'll leave some time at the end for audience Q&A. Same as always, just kind of drop them into the chat, and we'll try to hit them as we go. Same kind of rules as normal apply to. We'll get this buttoned up and sent out over the next couple of days. So if you have any thoughts or if you want to go take the conversation further, we'll make sure to pass on contact information and things along those lines. But really appreciate it, guys. As quick introductions, Jeremiah Carter, Derek Burns, Jeremiah, Senior Associate AD of NIL at the University of Minnesota. Compliance background kind of before that within the school, before that even a coach, and then before that at Minnesota, walk-on football player to all Big Ten, which I'll be honest, I didn't know until just about an hour ago when I was looking at your the profile on the website. Worked at the NCAA. I've really enjoyed getting to know Jeremiah for obviously a number of reasons, but in particular, your mind as it relates to kind of the rules and regulations and the compliance side of the house are, in my mind, kind of second to none. And certainly you've been a huge help to me and hopefully a lot of the people as we dive into this. In terms of thinking about this world through the lens of how we keep this above board and compliant and doing things the right way to protect, obviously, the institutions and the athletes and all the key stakeholders involved. Derek, co-founder, president, along with our good friend Robert Gagg of Dinkytown Athletes, Minnesota's collective supporting, I believe now, every sport, all student athletes across the Minnesota landscape. Former student athlete yourself. Sounds like you guys were on the same team for at least a couple of years. Playing football for the Gophers. And my last piece I'll say on Minnesota before I kick off the conversation with you guys, we were talking about it yesterday. I can't think of a single mascot in all of college athletics, beyond that even, that is more lovable than the Gopher. So what's his name again?
Goldie.
Goldie. I want to say Bucky because of the buck teeth, but
No.
I
That's
wouldn't.
a school east of us that we're not gonna.
Yeah, right. Ignore that comment. Jeremiah, Derek, we'll start as we always do. How did you guys get involved in the NIL world?
Yeah, well, Thomas, thanks so much for having us on and give us an opportunity to talk about Dinkytown athletes and really the success that we've had in collaborating with them as a department. I started in NIL at Minnesota because I was in the compliance role as the director of NCAA compliance, and when NIL kind of first popped up in 2021, it very quickly became apparent that we had to be involved. We had to do something, and as I looked around the department, we weren't. I didn't see us really moving the needle in any meaningful way early on, and so that just led to me trying to learn as much as I could about the NIL space and try and figure out how we could start helping our student athletes. And then, frankly, was lucky enough to reconnect with Eric and start talking about NIL, start talking about collectives, and with that, kind of my role just grew from there.
Thanks, Jeremiah and Thomas. Appreciate the intro. My entrance into NIL, I guess, started being a former student athlete, having a passion for Gopher sports. But my business partner and I had sold the business we were previously a part of. Our intention was to take a break for a while, but I do a guest spot on Gopher Gridiron Radio, which is a podcast focused on Gopher football. And the owner of the podcast was part of a Discord user group of fans who were trying to get a collective going. And so Luke basically said, you guys don't have anything to do. Why don't you lead the collective? And we said no, because collectives it's a tough, there's really no money in it. It's a tough business, but it did align with our passion. So after, thinking it over and deciding like, hey, maybe we can make an impact, that's how we got started. And it's been great. It's been a great learning experience. It's been rewarding. For us personally, we thought we knew everything about business, but we don't know anything about startups. So we've learned a lot, and here we are.
I don't want to know the answer, and I won't really be asking the question of if you could do it all over again, would you do it the same? But
yeah, I won't answer
let's just move on to the next one. I know Jeremiah and Derek, you guys have pulled together some materials that you're using internally, and as you're talking with folks across the community. I thought as we were kind of looking through those yesterday that it would just be a great way to kind of kick this conversation off and really kind of show the different ways in which you guys, I truly believe we work with a ton of collectives and a lot of institutions. The relationship that you guys have with each other is really special. Maybe it's because you're former teammates. Maybe it's the water in Minneapolis. I don't know, but I think there's a lot of really cool things that you guys have done and have kind of been sitting on the cutting edge of ways to partner that I'd love to just take some time to walk through. So Jeremiah, I know you've got some slides.
Yeah.
If we want to kind of kick it off there.
Yeah. So with this, I really kind of the goal of this, and I'll run through these pretty quick, is just to number one, understand why we got to where we did, where we're really collaborating between the university, the athletic department, and the collective became just a necessity. It's not an optional thing. It's something that we have to do to really to be able to function. And so just kind of quickly run through our background, right? So July 1, this got deregulated. Collectives really started popping up in November of that year, and at the time there were 6 of them. And then by February of 22, there were 34 of them, and they seem to multiply every day. Derek and
I'm
I
curious
first
to know who
started.
the original 6 were. Honestly, as I see that, I can think of one.
Yeah, there might have been 2 at one school, but
Yeah.
really the discussion about Dinkytown and before Dinkytown had a name, just the discussion of collectives in general started in March of 22, where Derek and I just started sitting down and meeting and saying, what's it going to take for Minnesota to be in the game with NIL, and also us, both being longtime Gopher fans, understanding that it's something that we had to be able to attack and really move forward in. July of that year, Derek and Rob, kind of did a soft launch where, at that time it was no marks and logos, it was no memberships. And the number one thing, there was just a lot of donor skepticism, right? Who are these guys? What is this? What is Dinkytown? I don't understand it. What's the need for it? By September, huge credit to Derek and Rob working with Basepath to get a membership option up and running. By September of 22, Dinkytown sold their first membership. We saw diehard fans jump in, but donors were really still lukewarm. And I would say the non-diehards, the casual fans, were really kind of still sitting it out. And then December 5th of 22 was actually the first portal window for football, the first portal window ever, because it got introduced earlier that year. And what we experienced is something that I hope to never experience again, and hopefully help some others avoid it. But essentially, what we saw, from a case study perspective, is we got rated. There are lots of reasons why student athletes transfer. There are lots of reasons why student athletes don't transfer. NIL is just one component of it. But, that off season, we lost 10 transfers to other Power 5 schools. And, it wasn't just anybody. If you look at what those 10 transfers went on to do this last season, one player is an honorable mention All Big Ten. We had a first team All Big 12 defensive player, Big 12 Defensive Newcomer of the Year honorable mention, and defense first team All Big 12 and first team consensus All American. That's some talent, and it was on the defensive side of the ball. Meanwhile, we were only able to gain 2 transfers from other Power 5 schools, one from Auburn and one from North Carolina. Why was the first question that we wanted to look at. We've Coach Fleck and our football coaching staff have been tremendous recruiters, and student athletes have loved playing for them. And so this was a bit of an anomaly. So we wanted to try and look at why. And the biggest thing is just that we didn't have enough money available, and this was the first time when it really, really started to matter. So when fall portal opened, when the spring portal opened, the funding just really wasn't there. What happens after the fall portal, and really this is the first portal period for any sport, as we found over time, getting money after that doesn't matter for retention. If it's not there, if it's not there before the portal is open, it doesn't help with retention at all. You can replace, but that's about all. So, that offseason, 22-23, we lost, from an experience standpoint, we lost 180 games played to other Power 5 teams. We only gained 65. So that essentially amounted to a net loss of 115 games of Power 5 playing experience. It's almost 9.5 seasons worth of playing experience in one season that we lost. And this last season, it impacted us significantly. So in 21-22, we were 3rd in total defense national ranking and 6th in scoring defense, and we went 9-4. In 22-23, we were 8th in total defense, and we were 4th in scoring defense nationally, and we went 9-4. We lost 134 Power 5 games played on defense, 135 games of experience, 2 transfers. And we fell to 54th in our national ranking in total defense and 67th in scoring defense. We went 6-7. Losing 40 to 50 spots in a national ranking on defense is going to cost you a couple of games, and it did. And this wasn't just a return to normal for us. Best defenses since 2014, based on K-Ford ratings, Minnesota's ranked 20th. We are traditionally have a strong defense, and that keeps us in the games. So coming out of that, we said, we don't want this to happen again. How do we avoid this again? And so the challenge is really, a lack of NIL funding or an increase in NIL funding in any given year. It doesn't show up for a full year, right? So, you have to have the money in advance. And if you have the money and you can keep your team, it shows up a year later. If you lose some players, it shows up a year later. During the season is not a great time to try and drive fundraising, because that's when fans are the most reactionary, right? If the team isn't performing well, they don't want to participate in NIL opportunities. The quote we had, this could have come from any number of people on social media where, that was their response to, hey, give to the collective. It's the exact opposite response that you should have, because, you want a better team, increase NIL opportunities. But that's the natural reaction that people have, and completely understandable. So our solution really coming out of that fall of 22, we said, look, we have to build up, and we have to talk about Dinkytown athletes as a department, as an athletic department, year round, to really try and help increase funding that's available for the following year. So what did that look like in action? Well, in March of 23, the athletic department announced that they were hiring the first full-time position to oversee an NIL program and interaction with the collective, and that's the job that I was hired into. They also put together something called the core team, for NIL, and that, that's an internal group. They have core teams for different sports, different activities, and this one's for NIL, and that includes a member of the marketing staff, a member of our multimedia rights partner, our licensing staff members, creative, athletic communications, all get together and meet every other week and discuss NIL and discuss Dinkytown athletes and what can we do to boost that. For Dinkytown's part, in March of that year, they signed an agreement with Gopher Sports Properties, our multimedia rights partner. They became the official NIL collective of Gopher Athletics. Importantly, they gained access to marks and logos with that paid designation, and that really brings legitimacy for fans. It's less of a question mark. Who are these people? What is this organization? When you go to the site and you see the Block M, right? You see our marks and logos on that website. It also gave them an advertising inventory to, kind of directly market to our fan base. And we got to do a press release regarding the agreement and their new designation. Throughout the late spring and then kind of through summer, we really were intentional in the way that we promoted them. Really, any way that was approved by the compliance staff saying that we could do it, we did it. So some of the things we did, we were able to highlight specific NIL activities that Dinkytown athletes had arranged. This one was with DeWalt, who was our sideline, heat supplier, and that was with some football student athletes. So this got marketed via email to our fan base. We had a summer barbecue that we hosted with Dinkytown athletes members. It was on our campus. It was in our athletic complex, and it was an opportunity for Dinkytown athletes members to connect with student athletes. And then, frankly, our coaches talking about it moves the needle the most. This is Coach Fleck at his weekly press conference, wearing a Dinkytown athlete shirt. And he, it was something that he also consistently talked about. So what did that do for us? Well, from when the football transfer portal opened in 22 to when it opened in 23, we had an almost 1,500% increase in the amount of available funds for the football for retention at that point, right? Going to the spring transfer portal year over year, it was an 875% increase in the amount of funds available. It really took off and was embraced by both our fan base, and then there was buy-in from our donors as well. We looking at the active paying membership. This is one where you have individuals paying small amounts, $10 a month all the way up to $500 a month to be members and getting benefits for that. There we saw 180% increase year over year at the time of the transfer portal for active paying members, and another 156% increase year over year for the spring transfer portal. Those are real dollars. Those are real, those are fans being engaged, more importantly, and talking about being a member of Dinkytown athletes. So what was the difference? Well, coming into this offseason, now again, to preface this, students transfer or don't transfer for lots of reasons: team, culture, university, fit, teammate engagement, lots of reasons. But we have the same coaching staff, and year over year, we went from losing 10 players to Power Fives to we lost 3 transfers to other Power Five schools this offseason. And we gained 8 from other Power Five schools. What does that mean from an experience standpoint? Well, you remember last offseason, 22-23, we lost 180 games total to other Power Five programs. This year, this offseason, we lost a total of 28, 0 on defense. As far as additions go, we added 122 games of Power Five playing experience to the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So we went from last offseason, 22-23, a net loss of 115 games of Power Five playing experience, to this offseason, we had a net gain of 94 games of Power Five playing experience. Most importantly, there was not a large amount of roster turnover. So really, because of that, this is a rivals ranking coming out of the last transfer portal period. A B grade. B's were good enough for me to graduate college, so it's got to be good enough.
I don't see any A's on there, so B looks like the best you can
Yep.
do.
Yep. So we did well in the transfer portal. This looked at not just who we gained, but also who we lost. It also allowed us to bring in experience at quarterback. We brought, based on the Pro Football Focus, we have the fourth highest rated quarterback coming back to the Big Ten for next year. Retention also matters. So we brought back the fifth highest rating running back in the Big Ten, and somebody that our fan base, more importantly, is really, really excited about after having a really great freshman year. And then we also, according to Pro Football Focus, are bringing back the highest graded left tackle in college football, which, as a former left tackle and Derek as a former offensive lineman, this was priority number one. I don't know what the coaches wanted to do, but this was priority number one. So, these things didn't just happen, right? It wasn't just that fans said, okay, now, let's go. And really want to highlight three different collaborations that happened. The first one is going into fall of 23. This one originated with our fundraising staff. So, in addition to talking to donors about giving, giving to Dinkytown athletes, they also have other conversations with them. And a member of our fundraising staff was discussing with a donor ways that they could potentially help with NIL. This donor happens to be involved with a food vendor that operates in our stadium as an independent vendor, and based on that initial conversation, Dinkytown athletes and this individual and this company entered into an agreement where the proceeds from the sales in the stadium were going to support NIL efforts for football, and it allowed football players to promote that vendor as well, both in the stadium and outside. This winter, we kind of did a test with, this was the Dinkytown Athletes Ticket 2-pack. So this came from our ticket office. They were looking for ways to help boost ticket sales for a few of our winter sports. Ultimately, they reached an agreement with Dinkytown Athletes through our multimedia rights holder, where Dinkytown was able to be the ticket package sponsor. And was able to offer a discounted 3-month entry-level trial membership. And they also got 2 tickets to the game. It required the individual purchasing the tickets through our ticket office to then go and register with Dinkytown with a credit card for a membership. And the memberships were set to begin charging after month 4, starting with month 4. Dinkytown did an incentive to become a member where they got a free autographed team poster along with signing up, all through Dinkytown. And we ended up with these ticket packages for men's basketball, women's basketball, women's ice hockey, and men's ice hockey. The great part about this was it provided significant exposure to Dinkytown for our fan base, because as a ticket sponsor, as we are talking about trying to sell tickets, we were able to talk about the Dinkytown Athletes 2-pack that's in our venues, in our games, and they were getting a lot of exposure out of that. They also got some direct revenue from it, right? As these are sold, they get dollars from that. I think the great thing is there was of the people who bought these 2-packs, there was a 68% redemption rate on memberships. And now 4 months later, 72% of those that had signed up are converted to paying members. And in a world where you're fighting and scratching for every member, things like this are great conversion rates. So the last one was one we just finished up in spring. It's called Goldie's Kids Club Combine. So Goldie's Kids Club is it's a sponsored activity where essentially kids they can sign up, they pay a small fee, and then they get tickets to events. They get to come to different things. One of the things that we've always hosted is the Kids Club Combine, and Goldie's Kids Club members can come and kind of run through the combine with different activities. The sponsor of this event, and the sponsor of Goldie's Kids Club, came to our MMR partner and said, "Hey, we really want to increase participation in this event because it doesn't seem like we're getting too many kids here, and we want to encourage physical activity." Our marketing staff said, well, one big issue we've had in previous years is we just don't get many student athletes here. So it ends up being the marketing staff kind of running these stations, and kids don't want to see a marketing staff member; they want to see athletes. So the sponsor then, became interested in increasing the number of student athletes participating in it, and that turned into Dinkytown athletes being invited on by Shields, the corporate sponsor, to be a co-sponsor of the Goldie's Kids Club Combine. What that meant was Dinkytown was able to essentially provide some student athletes as an NIL activity through working with the sponsor. They were running the stations and signed autographs after the event. In exchange, Dinkytown was able to offer free registrations for their members, which is an added perk for their membership base. And student athletes had an opportunity, volleyball student athletes playing with volleyball kids, football kids running through, running them through the drills. And ultimately, we ended up with a 33% increase in registrations, significantly more student athletes showing up, and an overall better experience for our donors. For our sponsor. So kind of the key takeaways is the last slide here. Really, you got to involve the whole athletic department in helping to provide solutions. All three of the examples that I ran through, they came from different parts of the athletic department, came from different units. The first one came from our fundraising staff. The next one came from our ticket office. The last one came from our marketing staff. Through communication between what does the sponsor need, what does Dinkytown need, what are we looking to do? It's important to try and find solutions that can be mutually beneficial to both the athletic department and the collective, if possible, because you're both going to be more motivated to find solutions and to make things work if it's mutually beneficial. The important thing to keep in mind is just as the athletic department, we have access to the collective's key demographic, which is our fan base. We can't just turn it over to them. Lots of privacy and university rules around that. But ultimately, we have the same key demographic. So anytime we can talk to our fan base about it, we're also talking to their key demographic. You got to work to find exactly what the line is with compliance and your general counsel, and then try and go as close as possible to that. Because ultimately, there aren't a lot of clear-cut things. So you just have to know where the lines are and try and work towards them. One thing that Derek and I have done is really just kind of talk about the initiatives that they're planning or different things that we're planning to see, what can be done to kind of boost efforts. Those are ultimately what drives success and what's helped to grow our membership base, and hopefully will continue to increase that in the future.
That's incredible. I know there's a lot to unpack there. I was just getting a couple of questions as they were coming through. I'm just gonna kick off with a couple of those. Can you in particular describe on the kind of alignment on the ticket opportunity side, like how did that come to be? And you just brought up like the line. I guess like where do you guys see the line, and where have you guys had to maybe take something to a point and then have to say like, okay, we can't step over that. And then Derek, just on your side, so that's probably more the Jeremiah side. Derek, on your side, like early days, I mean, I remember we were right there with you, like that donor skepticism, like the fan skepticism. I would just say the community-wide skepticism. Like, I imagine a lot of what we just went through helped in many ways to kind of bring more legitimacy and help folks to understand kind of the role that you were playing. But just curious from your side as well, like how you saw, that change over time, and if there are things that, for a lot of the other folks that are on this call that are, working through those same types of of efforts. What were the things that you guys did even outside of that to try to get that going? But sorry, I'll start with the first one, Jeremiah.
Yeah. So part of that, I think I can wrap in there's a question asked about are the state laws involved with partnering with the ticket office. So that does kind of go hand in hand with the compliance question of how do you find the line? Where is the line? What are you able to do? What are you not? With the state of Minnesota does not have a state law. We do not have a state NIL law. I think we're in the minority now for not having one. However, the first thing that we do with everything is bring our compliance staff in and really kind of sit down and talk through what we're able to do and what we're not. And with the ticket deal specifically, that centers around an agreement through Gopher Sports Properties, which is our Learfield affiliate, our MMR affiliate, where Dinkytown is paying to be a sponsor. So with the NCAA rules or the NCAA guidelines as they existed at the time, saying that we can't do anything on their behalf that that isn't available to other entities, and we can't give them nothing that they're not paying for. One of the first things we did when we were talking about what can we do to connect it with tickets, where is there some space, the first thing we did was look at what have we done with other vendors, what are other sponsors having done. We have for a long time had something called the Cub Family 4-pack. Cub Foods is a grocery store here in the Minnesota, and the Cub Family 4-pack was actually structured very similarly, where you would get these 4 tickets, you would get a gift certificate to Cub Foods, and these things were tied together really again as a sponsorship opportunity.
Sure.
But it helps us out as being able to sell more tickets. So here, that's exactly what we did. And we continue to keep our compliance staff involved the entire time, which is why, in the ads that I had up, if you noticed, there weren't student athletes in those ads, even though this is, it's NIL. Dinkytown does NIL. We weren't using student athletes to advertise those ticket packages because student athletes are not permitted to do NIL associated with a competition that they are participating in. So instead, we chose a basketball and a hockey glove, consistent with it. And that was something that our compliance said we needed to do to stay on the right side of this. And ultimately, again, that was finding the line, going right up to it,
Sure.
and making sure that we're stopping there.
Yeah, and I know for a fact it was pretty exciting success, and you obviously shared the stats. Derek, on kind of that skepticism in trying to bring the community into this. I know that was a long, arduous process. Obviously, having folks like Jeremiah have been super helpful, but curious your thoughts on what were the things that have really helped to bring those tipping points around for you guys.
Yeah, so I think in maybe a couple of unique challenges we have in our market that we've had to, I think, work a little bit harder to address is that, and I was, by the way, I was born and raised in Minnesota, so I can say this. Minnesotans are a wait and see people. They're just kind of really skeptical of anything new. So, and we knew that going into this. So there were definitely, we definitely had a lot of support from the diehards from the beginning. So I need to acknowledge that. And like the moment we started offering memberships, the diehards jumped in, but there were a ton of people on the sidelines, pun intended, just like looking and saying like, I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know how long this is going to last. How important is this? So we saw that, and we anticipated that. We saw that. And I think the second thing that we identified was we're not in a college town. So mind share and market awareness is a much bigger challenge here than it is elsewhere. In a college town, generally the week or month after a collective is formed, everybody knows who the collective is. They know what the point of the collective is. They understand it. Doesn't mean they're all going to support, but they have an understanding of it. In our market, a year plus into this, people who are Gopher fans were still saying, who's Dinkytown athletes? I've never heard of you. What is NIL? How does this work? And that's just a function of a really crowded sports entertainment market. We have great numbers and great volume of people, but the depth and penetration is a big challenge. So I would agree with what you mentioned there. And so how did we address that? It's what Jeremiah talked about. We kind of high level, even higher level than when he went over. We talked about what can Dinkytown athletes do to spread awareness and build some name recognition. And that was our purchase of a contract with the rights holders. So running radio ads, email ads, online ads that go right to the fan base. That was the beauty of working with the rights holders. Like, that's our target market. We don't need to do a bunch of research and try to identify who our target market is. It's the people who are buying season tickets. It's the people that are listening to the Gopher podcast, etc. So that was our approach. But that's only so effective. And so the key is that we had to work with the university to get them talking about it. At the end of the day, Dinkytown athletes can run radio ads and banner ads and say, this is what we're doing and this is how important we are. But until the coach says in a press conference, this is really important and this is why we need your support, it's only going to have so much effectiveness. So just if I think back to that time, and some fans that were involved at the time maybe jumped on board, that's what happened. And initially, like, people hated it. They were really upset at the coach because he in multiple press conferences was saying, this is really important, and if we don't get on board, we're going to be left behind. And like, people were just they were not happy, but
Sure.
at the same time, they did jump on board. And that's, that aligns with what Jeremiah showed, which is, so I think that was the key to building the awareness. Like, let's make sure everybody knows who we are, what this is, and how important it is. I think how important comes from the university, and the first two come from the collective. And so I would cap this by saying, or the answer to this question by saying, we still, to this day, there's a lot of discussion about NIL because of the complications of the rules, which is, I'll acknowledge, is ever changing and it is complicated. But how you use NIL and the importance of it is not complicated. It's very straightforward. It's, building the support, which is necessary. And you saw the metrics, like, has a direct impact. And I would actually argue fan support has always had an impact. It's just a different channel now, and it's a little bit more direct. So yes, NIL is complicated, but it's, I think being able, now that we're a few cycles into it, being able to show impact is going to be that much more important, because that's how direct it is.
I feel like you're teeing me up perfectly to talk about what is probably going to be happening within the hour, maybe 24 hours. We have a big settlement looming over our head. Obviously, I think we've probably read the different things that we think are going to probably happen when that, ultimately takes place. There's going to be some rev sharing, schools being more involved, kind of directly to pay athletes. I'm curious from both of your guys' perspectives, because we've been a part of a lot of conversations where the schools are, thinking about the models that they're going to be kind of taking on in this new world. Curious how you guys are thinking about it, and where do you see the collective and university relationship in a world that is, shifting kind of literally beneath our feet in real time?
Yeah. Well, first I would say, I think, originally when Derek and I have been talking just a little bit about what's come out publicly. And I'm not in the, Big Ten presidents and chancellors meetings where there's discussing these things. So I don't really have inside information there, but, when you start to dig into it, the information, this thing's, a mile wide and an inch deep, right? Like, you start asking questions about, well, how's this going to work? How's this going to work? How's this going to work? And those are questions that, frankly, when you have the answer to them, you can start to dig down into, does it still, are we still better off having a collective and working with that collective, or are we better off doing all of that internally? long before the settlement, my opinion that I've shared is I think that we are better off with a collective, because there are lots of things that our collective is able to do that we are not as an institution. And there's really one thing that we can do that they can. That's raise money through our foundation. So if we are able to be more directly involved, I think that I think that there's room for both. I think that there is room for a collective. Right now, the major questions are, how is Title IX going to be impacted? Right? Is Title IX outside of what a collective does? Is revenue sharing within what Title IX covers, or is it outside of what Title IX covers? Those are going to take quite a while to figure out. So I think the jury's still out on that. What is the NCAA, enforcement stance to collectives going to be? That's another question. But with all of that, what doesn't change is I'm grateful that we have a partner like Dinkytown athletes, like Derek and Rob, who have worked so hard for our student athletes to build Dinkytown athletes up to what it is now, where you can be out in the community and I have seen somebody wearing a Dinkytown athlete shirt or hat. Like I could not have envisioned that 2 years ago. So to think that we're just going to take all that hard work and throw it out the window, it doesn't make sense to me. But I don't have a crystal ball. I can't I can't figure out I can't say specifically where this is going to go in the next 6, 9, 12 months.
And the only thing I would add to that, Thomas, I think the most important thing for people to remember, and it's going to be probably hard because there's going to be a lot of cluttered information coming out, is that before and after this settlement, there are profit sharing and there's NIL. Now, NIL might be tied in some way contractually to the profit sharing, but both of those things are going to exist after this settlement. The number one goal of the settlement is to settle current lawsuits, and the number two goal of the settlement is going to be protection from future lawsuits. That's the chief reason this is being settled, or likely to be settled. All of the other speculative statements that are kind of been floated out there about how is this going to change NIL, are schools going to be more involved, or collectives, we don't know. But NIL is still, the federal government has spoken on NIL, the courts, and it's not going away. So how schools are involved and how collectives are involved, maybe that changes. And ultimately, I think I agree with Jeremiah, that's going to be probably up to the school to decide how much they maybe want to take in-house or not, but it's not going away.
It seems like in the conversations we've been having, there's more intent on collaborating than trying to create further division between the two. It really feels like, and maybe it's for some of those Title IX implications, understanding how the cap count is going to be kind of laddered up. And Derek, I think it's really well said. I mean, hey, the rev sharing and profit sharing is one thing. There's still going to be a really, I think, meaningful need for student athletes. It's kind of been proven, need support in how they have practice schedules, game schedules, class schedules, study hall, what little time left is for a social life, helping. And I know you guys have done a really effective job of this, like bringing brands to the table that can, shepherd a relationship with athletes in a really meaningful way are things that I think are still going to be incredibly important in this. Where they sit, I think time will tell, but it's certainly something that we're seeing more and more kind of folks at least try to come to the table to sit together and figure out how the pieces are going to fit, versus just saying like, hey, we got it from here. Thanks so much. Like, see you tomorrow. But yeah, no, I appreciate the insights. We did have a couple of other quick ones kind of come through here. It looks like Jeremiah, appreciate it. Looks like you kind of already hit him with the answers. Yeah, Dinkytown having a board, Derek, it sounds like you guys are running that. And then specific strategies used to support non-major sports and student athletes. Jeremiah tossed a couple of answers in there. I just had one other one that came across through my internal one is what is the best way to go about any issues that pop up between collectives and the university? And I'm sure there's some that bubble up on your side, Jeremiah. I'm sure there's some that bubble up on your side, Derek. But when you guys are facing, you know, pushback, skepticism, issues, whether it's, hey, I got my tickets or I got my membership, but I didn't get my tickets. I got my tickets, I didn't get my like, as tactical as that, like, what are the ways that you guys come together to try to handle issues as they come up that are likely affecting both of you? Because at the end of the day, the fan is now, has a relationship with both sides.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, if there's only one takeaway today, like from the university side, talk to your collective, like talk to them all the time. Have open and consistent communication. You know, we've seen everything from we've had fans contact our ticket office to say, hey, how do I want to this is great, I want to cancel my Dinkytown athletes membership and I can't figure out how to do that. Well, our ticket office person, our customer service representative, got that information to me and I reached out. Now it turns out this person did not have a Dinkytown athletes membership, which is why they were having a hard time canceling it. They had signed up for for something called Twin Cities NIL Club, which existed before it existed
Joke.
before the collective. Yeah, there we go. But again, there it's the ticket office customer service rep knew who to contact. I was able to speak with Derek and get it resolved really quickly. So being collaborative in there, and then just another good example is our the Dinkytown athletes has collaborated with a company that produces a beer for them, and that was one where I mean, how many conversations did we have on that, Derek?
Yeah, well, before
100.
anything ever happened. Yeah,
Yeah,
many.
but I mean, everything from, hey, we're exploring this. How's the university going to react to it, right? How's the athletic department going to react to it? Everything from that to, seeing a proof of what the advertising and what the can and the case were going to look like, just to make sure that it didn't violate any trademark or licensing, right? Because you want to be you want to find that line. So it's maroon but not gold. It has the state of Minnesota on it, but with Dinkytown athletes and not a block M. Can it say supporting Minnesota student athletes, or can it say Gopher student athletes? All of those things were conversations we had with the appropriate people here before this stuff was locked in and came out, so that there wasn't a surprise after the fact and somebody saying, hey, you can't do that, after it's already printed on 10,000 beers, right? So it just talk to each other.
I would say from the collective's perspective, if you're listening to this and wondering how you can collaborate better with the university, it's going to start with transparency on your end. There are things you're going to need from the help you're going to need from the university. Well, they're going to be much more likely to help you if you just are completely transparent with what your plans are, what your goals are, what you're doing. So there are less surprises, and maybe sometimes it ends up being a little more work on the front end, but it saves a lot of heartache and corrections on the back end. The adult beverage is a good example. We've got a coffee now where like the university knows exactly what we're planning to do, when we're going to launch it. They've seen designs, they've seen plans. So all of a sudden we don't just launch something and, well, wait a minute, either you can't do that, or why did you do it at this time? We've got a promo coming up that we could have partnered with you on. So transparency, and all of the people running these collectives are well-meaning, passionate fans at some level of the sports team. So why wouldn't you be transparent? There's nothing, you have nothing to hide. So I think that's the key. And that opens up a willingness to help the collective.
So appreciate you saying that, Derek, because that is the question that we get so often is how do we develop that relationship with our school if we don't have one? Um, yeah, I think the transparency is just the number one recommendation. Like the more you give, the more likely they are to give back. Um, and yeah, just no surprises. Everyone's on the same page. The last thing you like, the things that tend to, you know, foster the division are when they're looking at the paper and they're seeing things for the first time from what you're doing. So I love that. Guys, cannot thank you enough for the time for taking some time out of your day to bring this together and share kind of your experiences and the great successes that you all have had. I truly believe that what you guys are doing is up there with anyone out there. You get maybe 1/50th of the press of some of these other ones. I've got my Grove button right here. Just but like you guys are doing it as well as anyone out there. The results speak for themselves, Jeremiah. I can't thank you enough for putting all those slides together, and it tells a real story of if you guys are able to do things together, you know, the impact is amplified and exponential. But really appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks, Tom. It's
Thanks so
my
much,
pleasure.
Thomas.